There's this cute guy you met online. You've been texting for a week now, and you're about ready to cut him off entirely. It's like this guy has no life outside of texting you. 50 times a day, your phone pings, good mornings, good nights, random photos, sincere compliments about how much he likes you and he can't stop thinking about you and wants to hear from you. Yes, this man is a supertexter. So why does he do this, and what do you do with him? Stick around and I'll explain. I'm Marc, Katz, dating coach for smart, strong, successful women and your personal trainer for love. Welcome to the Love You podcast. Keep listening to discover what to do with a supertexter who will not stop texting. When we're done, I'll let you know how you could apply to Love You to create a passionate relationship that makes you feel safe, heard, and understood. Safe, heard, and understood. So this came up in a Love You Live coaching session. These are these epic calls that I do every Tuesday night with a whole bunch of women on Zoom answering questions. And so this came up, and when I gave my answer, you could see on Zoom, everybody's muted. Everybody's sort of silently nodding their assent because this is such a familiar thing. It's such a familiar idea that I knew I had to discuss it with you here today. So at first glance, this is a question about texting. But it's not really about texting per se. Like most dating questions, texting just becomes a catalyst for a deeper look at overall dating dynamics. In other words, this question is really about confidence, pacing, self-awareness, and boundaries. Texting's just the pretext for that conversation. So let's start with confidence. When a guy is bowled over by a woman, and when I was single, I certainly had those instances. He may be a confident guy, but he loses all that confidence. He throws it out the window because he's so impressed, he's so dazzled by her intelligence or her beauty that, well, he becomes a lesser version of himself. And we call this, in Love You, we call it the Pedestal Principle. It means that when you put someone up on a pedestal, they are immediately looking down at you. And this is what happens when we, collectively, men, women, get too excited, too invested in someone who's a virtual stranger without much interaction. Put them up on a pedestal, they start looking down at us. And when I was single, and especially when I was struggling, this happened to me more times than I cared to admit. Very much in my late 20s, my career wasn't established, I was a little anxious and depressed, I hadn't had much success in love, I was kind of at my low point. And so the idea, when you're that person, that you have to capture them, you have to grab them, you have to get them before they slip away. That's a scarcity mindset. That's what people who are feeling insecure do. They target someone and then they try to hold on with an iron grip. And it doesn't work. No one wants to be held onto with an iron grip from someone they barely know. In Love You, we teach this idea to women. You've heard me say it before. You are the CEO, men are the interns. This way you don't have to chase down men. So just pay attention to whether you're operating from a place of confidence and abundance or scarcity and insecurity. If you're coming from a place of scarcity and insecurity, you might discover that you're the person who's doing all the texting, right? Trying to lead, trying to nudge him, remind him you're alive. Ineffective. Next, let's talk about pacing. Now, you know me. I strongly believe, despite what every other dating expert on the planet seems to tell you, texting is easily the worst form of communication. You could get a guide with 67 great texts that you could use to make him crave you. But the fact is, texting is a terrible form of communication, but it is the most ubiquitous form. It's everywhere. It's not going anywhere. And that is why it's so easily abused. But texting, understand, leaves out eye contact, body language, tone, nuance, the ability to react to someone in real time. Dialogue, to have a conversation. So conversations tend to spin out of control via text, as I'm sure you've noticed, for all of these reasons. So he might think he's being funny, but you think he's coming across as weird. And he thinks he's being flirty, and you think he's being perverted. And he thinks he's having a real-time conversation with you, but in this case, he's not actually letting you do your job or go to sleep because he's demanding that you text him so much. So just understand, texting, right, is part of the problem, and how we pace it is part of the problem. When guys don't understand this, they contribute to their own problems. Remember, I'm not justifying the supertexter. I'm explaining the supertexter and why it is problematic. Next, there's the idea of self-awareness. And self-awareness is really hard to come by. Right? It comes with feedback, and no one knows how they come across until you get feedback. But who gives feedback to someone when you're dating? The only feedback guys actually get is when you stop texting them, when you sort of just ghost on them. But even then, they don't know why. They just think you just bailed in the middle of a conversation and that you're a terrible human being, even though you're only reacting to what they're doing. So men tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over. The same things that undermine them with other women, they're going to keep on doing with you. Exhibit A, being a supertexter. So in his mind, he's an enthusiastic Romeo who's charming you with his verbal profusions every 15 seconds. And in your mind, he is a clueless stalker who might need a restraining order. But well, that's just a matter of perception. Next, boundaries. If you, as the woman, are the CEO of your love life, you want to be able to set a boundary for how you want to be treated. He's not going to know your boundary. He's going to test your boundaries. Texting someone 50 times a day is certainly a test of boundaries. The good news is this. If the intern, the man, wants to get anywhere with you, he has to listen to you. He has to respect your boundaries. Otherwise, this thing doesn't get off the ground. At the same time, you as the CEO want to deliver this message in such a way that someone can hear it, buy into it, and make the necessary changes that make you happy instead of making him feel judged or wrong. Right? Because that's an ineffective way of communicating. So the way to do this is with something that very few people do. It is direct, nonviolent communication. Right? This problem of the supertexter doesn't get solved by sending him a text. The problem with the supertexter, right, is solved by a different form of communication. When this guy is going on a big texting run, here's what you do. Text him back, call me. Love to hear your voice. You don't have to say, we need to talk. Call me. Love to hear your voice. He has his phone in his hand. He'll pick up the phone and call you. And now you just lay out the situation really logically so this guy can hear you. Number one, provide validation. He's a good guy. You appreciate his enthusiasm. You love the fact that he doesn't play games and he lets you know where you stand. That's what he wants to hear. It happens to be true. Number two, provide your feeling statement, how you're feeling. No one can argue with how you're feeling. So when you text so much, it makes me feel X. Smothered, put up on a pedestal by a guy who doesn't really know me, a little guilty that I don't want to reciprocate in the same way. And all of this that you're doing unintentionally has the consequence of making me want to pull away. It makes me want to resent you. And that's too bad because I get the sense that you're a nice guy. Number three, provide a solution. We started with validation, then you told him how you feel in a non-attacking way. The last piece of the equation for good communication is the solution, in which you tell him exactly how to court you more effectively. Tell him. Instead of letting him devise his own strategy where he's digging himself a hole, you can't text me 70 times a day when I'm at work. I'm not even looking at my cell phone. Right? I'm not ignoring you. I've got a job. So here's what I'd love to see. Text me once or twice a day. You can text me in the morning. You can text me at night. You could check in. We could have a dialogue. But I can't have this running dialogue at all times. I've got other things that I have going on. It's not working. Maybe if texting is not enough, maybe we could schedule the time to talk. That could be in your repertoire. Right? Say, hey, you want to talk on Thursday night? I'll leave time open at 7:30. These are solutions you can give to a guy. Right? Not my solutions, solutions that work for you. Right? So tell him, don't send me every thought you have, every meal you eat. Right? Don't expect me to drop whatever I'm doing when you text, and if I don't reply quickly, tell me that I'm doing something wrong. Let me miss you a little bit. Right? This isn't a matter of playing games, but just giving me time in between texts so that it could be my turn instead of feeling like this is a 24/7 obligation to someone that I haven't met yet. If you could do that, maybe we have a chance. If you can't do that, I don't think this is really going to work. right? We're not going to be the right fit if you have these expectations of me that I can't deliver on. It's very gentle. It's very reasonable. Be hard to argue with. Right? It's mature. And you're setting a tone for how you communicate with men in relationships. And you acknowledge his needs as a human being. You acknowledge that he's a good guy. You acknowledge he's attracted to you, that there's nothing wrong with being enthusiastic and transparent. There's just probably a better way to go about this that works for you. Puts the ball in his court. Now, will he succeed? No, he'll probably fail. He's a supertexter. He can't help himself. But at least you will have given him the chance and given him the template so that he could succeed. This is constructive feedback. It's designed to help, not designed to hurt. That's all you could ever do with any guy. Show him how to please you. If he doesn't please you, then you can let him go. Now this, I hope, is useful advice. This is why I love doing this podcast. This is our 258th podcast or something like that. It's the last one of 2022. And I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish you a very happy new year, a wonderful holiday season, and many, many thanks for listening to the Love You Podcast, watching the Love You Podcast on YouTube. We have over 40,000 listeners every single month. The podcast has been downloaded over 2 million times somehow, and that's all thanks to you. So I really appreciate that. It means the world that I'm not just shouting into a void and you're taking some of this advice and taking it to heart and considering whether this works for you and how you can integrate it into your life. And so my request for the new year, for the holiday season, is if you enjoy this, please do me a small favor of giving me positive feedback, right? Just a small bit of positive feedback. It's a positive review on Apple. Apple Podcasts matter. That's where most people get them. And that would be the nicest Christmas gift you can give me. So just go to the Apple link, right? Apple Podcasts or whatever it is, and just share your thoughts about me, what we do here, how it's impacted your life, etc., etc. My name is Marc Katz. Thanks for tuning into the Love You Podcast. For more episodes like this on YouTube, click on the subscribe button, ring the bell, choose all to get notified when new content comes out. And if you want a man who makes you feel safe, heard, and understood, go to www.evanmarckatz.com/apply. Watch my free video on how to fix your broken man picker. And when you're done, you could fill out an application for Love You to join other smart, strong, successful women in a community where you could finally get the relationship that you deserve. I love you. I appreciate you. I'll see you there.